Yo, Sino here again, and I have my second, well, technically third fine binding ever, but second design of a fine binding, which again, if you've seen the previous video, was for a Society of Bookbinders exhibition, and with this one I decided to go full leather. And if you watched the previous video, I explained that normally for a fine binding you would read the book and pick out some ideas as inspiration for a design. However, because I'm still very new at this, I chose to not do that and just purely experiment. So it has nothing to do with the inside of the book. And I based this design primarily on the copper colour. I My bookbinding teacher lent me a copy of this book here. This is my copy, not the one he lent me. His is much nicer, not an ex-library book, which I don't mind. But then there's some lovely designs in here. But as soon as I saw this copper, I only thought there was gold and silver. Obviously, I knew there was silver because that was obviously what I previously. But gold and silver. But as soon as I saw this, I thought copper foil. Ooh, we need to. Oh, and black. Obviously, there's black. But as I saw that, I thought I need to make a design based on this. So I came up with this, which there was not that. Well, I mean, when I say not much inspiration, I mean I didn't look at something specifically and then come up directly with this. It was kind of just I brainstormed, but I like to look at stuff like like retro futuristic stuff, that kind of thing. So it kind of looks like that. People have described it as like a circuit board type thing, which I can see. Yeah. Oh, little card came out there. So like that, yes. It's well, the design is supposed to be symmetrical. I'll get the shine out of the light I've just got on there. And so yeah, it's supposed to be symmetrical. All hand lines. The dots with the circles there's a like an O. Well, it's kind of like an O, like a circle, a hollow circle, and then a dot in the middle. And then the lines are just an arc. I didn't use a roll, that kind of thing. And then you will see it's pretty hard to see on the camera. I'll try and get the light. You can kind of see. You can see the inlay. I have a leather inlay. So the whole case it's a case binding, and it's full leather, black calf, and then there's grey inlays, which I tried to design to replicate or kind of do an homage to half leathers, I think it's called. There's half leathers and quarter leathers, but the one I'm talking about thinking is where you have the thick leather spine plus the leather corners, but obviously I have an extra bit, so it's kind of like a futuristic version, yes, you could say, of it. And again, calf, grey. My initial idea was to have a lighter grey, but there wasn't any available like right away. So maybe I'll do this again with my the initial idea I had, because actually the kind of lollipop heads I initially had as a solid copper circle instead of a dot within a circle, but I didn't have a dot, like a big circle, available. So, but I still think this looks really good. Yes. Let's move to the inside. I think that's everything. Well, I think I went over with it's leather dressed, which is sheep oil, which is I think like the hair of a sheep, or sort of like the oil off the hair of the sheep. I think I put 2 or 3 coats on, which shines it really nice. It looks like the Death Star floor is what it looks like to me. which I'm proud at. I went with French groove. In the future, I will go for a laced-in design, which is stronger, which is what I'm all about. So it's French groove, yes. It's sewn all along, and actually, because this book there are only 4 sections, and they're 32 pages each, which is strange. You don't want an even number, and they're like giant sections for how small a book is, which was a challenge to round and join it. It's one of the reasons why I made the end papers so thick, and here are the end papers. Similar design again to the original, ledger style, with orange sewing all along to match the copper. And because it's such a short book, I sewed it with 1 thread, so there's no knots you won't see any knots in here, or there's none on the spine, which was a pain. I think I had to restart it about maybe twice, because when you're dealing with that long of a thread, normally you want about a meter 20. It curls up on itself like really easy any longer than that. So I did knot it a few times, but it ended up nice. So the end paper is again a Victoria Hall kind of similar kind of murky cloud design. I thought would look very well with the grey leather, and a grey cloth up the middle to kind of match everything, just colour match basically. And this is sewn. You might be able to see it actually. Oh yeah, that's pretty good. You can see the raised where the tapes are. It's sewn onto 5 tapes because there was enough gaps in the holes originally. And actually, this book, unlike the other one, which came the purple and white one I showed in the previous video, that book came as a book, as you would buy off the shelf with a dust cover and everything, and I took it apart, then rebound it. This one came as the loose sections, holes punched, but it was unbound basically. And if you've seen my periodic table video, you will see why this excited me. And this kind of kicked off me looking for books like the periodic table book I have, if you've seen that video. So that really excited me. So I've done the cover, end papers. This is also the first book I have sewn headbands on. I practiced on just a blank book, and then these are, I think, like the 3rd and 4th headbands I've done, and they are it's quite difficult to see, sorry, my camera doesn't really do anything focus wise. They're just a round core, single colour, bead on the edge end band, which, yes, and I didn't do head caps, so it you can kind of see it, and it kind of that one's a bit worse, you can kind of see it a bit. I'll remedy that for the next leather binding I do, which will be basically all of the fine bindings I want to do. Hopefully I can do leather, or maybe at some point do a vellum binding. Wow. Are there any issues I had with this book? Yes, if you look like this, you will see the boards are kind of splaying outwards. Now, this is a downside of leather, one of the few. When you make the case, you wet the leather with water, and then you give it a healthy covering of starch paste, and then you wait a bit and you give it another pasting of starch paste again, because the first pasting soaks in, and then you paste it again to kind of refresh it. And as anything gets wet, you add moisture to it, it'll expand, and then when it dries on the boards, it pulls the boards, and it pulls them up like that, because it's And the way you counter that is you pre-bend the boards. Nothing like revolutionary. And on this board here, there's actually, well, I've paired it, which was actually, this was the first leather book I've done, and going through the process of pairing leather took me about 4 hours to pair the whole thing, which has given me a very great appreciation of any time I pick up a leather book and I notice the pairing now. I remember what I did and think, oh, I can appreciate it a lot more now. But even paired leather on the turn-in, pairing, scrape it so it's thin, so when you look at the board edge, the leather goes over it in the shape of the board instead of going round, which means on the shelf it would be round and it would wear kind of unevenly and it would just look unseemly, undesirable. Anyway, so when you pair leather very thin on the turn-ins, it goes round and then it would kind of taper into the book, like that, kind of taper in to the board, and you would, even though you pair it well, there would still be a rise you could feel. But because this leather has pulled the board so much, I think there are 5 or 6 layers of paper on to bend the board the other way, and it's still bending outwards. It's still bending outwards. So because there's 5 or 6 layers, it's like an infill card that you would put on the board, so when the end paper goes down, the leather, there's no step into where there's not leather, basically. So you'd have leather and then card, and then when the end paper goes down, it's like it's one thing. And because we've got so many bending paper layers on it, it's as if we've got an infill card. I say we because my teacher helped me with this a lot. It's not that I didn't start this entirely. I'm still new, so I get help, but it's all my ideas, obviously, but executing them is still quite difficult when it's a brand like a brand new idea I've never done before, that type of thing. But yeah, I feel like we could have put more on. Like I could have put 7-8 layers on. It might still bend. I wonder if it's gonna be like that for every binding I do. Leather. Obviously you don't get that with cloth at all, really. Oh, and there's nothing on the spine. As with the other book, you'll notice I didn't put title or author on. That's because I didn't design the book with putting the title and author on the cover in mind. I know that might sound strange, but some people think you shouldn't on a fine binding. I think it depends on how you design it. If you design it with incorporating the words of the title and author on it, then do that. If you design it without title and author on, I feel like it would make it worse. Also, this isn't going to be in a library. It's not going to be on the shelf that someone needs to scan really quickly and go, oh, there's that book. It's an art piece, so it doesn't need the writing on. Some people will say, though, that books are about writing and words, so put words on. I'm kind of in the middle. It just depends on what you design. I feel like I rambled a lot there, kind of went on a bunch of tangents. So we've done cover, tooling. Also on the copper tooling. After I learned there was copper tooling, I learned there's basically every colour. So metallic, matte. So hopefully I can do some more cool things on it. I think for this exhibition I saw someone use a metallic green on their book, which was really nice for the design they had. Obviously it wouldn't wouldn't work well, I don't think, here. So we've done end papers, cloth strip. I'm probably going to stick with this type of end paper design, the ledger style. I've got a slight modification to a traditional ledger style to make it a bit stronger, even though it's already strong. Yeah, and then hopefully on the next one I can do a laced in boards, which is stronger, and maybe a different style of end band. But yes, I'm proud of this as the first leather binding I've done. There are some issues, so some of the tooling isn't perfect. Which one is it? I think it is. There's one, two. Yeah, that one. That one not very center, and the surrounding circle is not very defined compared to these. So the tooling is not ideal, as you know. For example, the vertical line kind of goes into that circle. But overall, I'm proud. There's a lot of well, not a lot compared to some, but it's quite precise tooling. This, you know, the lines have to meet where the inlay changes direction, that kind of thing. It was pretty precise to do. Precise tooling is virtually impossible to do perfectly. Imprecise tooling, like kind of scattered dots and that kind of thing, is a lot easier because you don't have to replicate it. You just kind of go along and make a nice design kind of on the fly. The inlays are, I mean, they might look good. Well, they are good, I guess. Like the level is flat, mostly, I think. There's a bit of a ridge on the back. There's some kind of, there's a bit of a gap. You might be able to see. The inlays aren't perfect though by any means. I'm going to improve doing that. But again, very proud of this. I think this looks incredible. But again, biased. It's obviously my design. And the first two, if you saw the other video, I explained I ignored the contents of the book. Going forward, I will be taking inspiration from the books I bind for fine bindings and incorporating their themes or designs. The next book I will finish is it's the Harleen comic by Stepan Sage, and that is definitely Harley Quinn inspired. So it's not that I won't ever do an abstract design like this, but it'll be it'll fit the book when the time comes. So yes, let me think. One cool thing is the French groove, I forgot to mention, is very well defined, because when you use leather, you have a knitting needle on each side of the groove to press in instead of a lace, like a shoelace, because the texture of the lace can imprint on the leather, so you have a smooth thing, and it's a well-defined trench. You know, speaking of the Death Star, I guess. Yeah. I chose to do one color headbands. I know how to do two. It's the same basically, but I thought the orange, just the solid orange sewing with the solid orange headband would work very well. But yeah, very proud of this. Again, this will go into the, well, it's been in the exhibition. It'll go back because I just have this on loan for a day. Yes, so I'll see you next time, hopefully with a Harley Quinn fine binding.